dating and choosing a partner. Principles that we're going to look at here: choice overload, salience, defaults, and sunk costs. So let's start with choice overload, probably a really easy one, obvious one to start with. Everyone's on the apps now. Apps is the most common way for people to meet. It's the most common way by far now, actually, compared to all of the ways we used to meet. And what does this mean, right? This means that we've changed this idea of choice. We have so many more options, and culturally, we think of this as like a wonderful thing. We, think about, especially in the United States, it's kind of this cultural value of like more choice is always better. And I think the question here is that always necessarily true? Let's look at this study where people were given the choice of chocolates. So let me give you 6 chocolates. I'm putting these 6 chocolates in front of you. Would you like, go ahead and try these? And then at the end, I ask you, do you want to buy one of these? And then the second group put 30 chocolates in front of you. Try one of these, go ahead and make your choice. And then I ask you questions about, okay, how satisfied? How much did you enjoy this chocolate? How confident are you that that was the best chocolate to choose and you shouldn't have chosen one of the other chocolates, right? These questions, when we think about our satisfaction with the choice, it becomes a little bit different. So the results here are that the purchase rate was higher with the 6 chocolates because it may be an easier choice to make among 6 than 30. But more importantly, the point I want to make here is around satisfaction. There's a differential in satisfaction when we have a much broader choice set like this. Okay, another study that I like here is one that was done on photography students. So these students were kind of at the end of their program and were asked to select one of their photographs that would be sent off for printing. We're going to be sending this to England, it's going to be printed for you, and you're going to receive it. Wonderful. And the 2 conditions were that, hey, I'm going to, once you make your choice, you are going to be kind of, this is it, right? And then the second condition was told, hey, you can switch your choice if you like. Any predictions, let's put this in chat, on which group was more satisfied with their choice, with their painting in the end? No difference? Non-change. Yeah. So this is this idea of optionality, right? This idea of, oh, I can go back and switch it. We tend to, again, culturally like this idea of let's keep all of our options on the table at all times. And it turns out the group that kind of had to choose and stick with it was more satisfied than the group that had this ability to switch out. And so what's the parallel here with the dating market? This idea of this, oh, I'm dating you now. It's fine, it's great. But this with the apps kind of present on our phone, how easy is it to just swipe? When the next best thing is just a swipe away. So that mindset can have kind of happiness costs for us here. Well-being costs. We could think of the analogy of, imagine you have an apartment. And let's suspend reality for a second and pretend that we don't have a traditional lease, but instead we have one in which we negotiate it every single day. You get to renew it every single day. So I turn to you and I say, hey, I'm the landlord, I'm the landlady. And I say, do you want to renew today? Yes or no? And you get the choice and you get to decide yes or no. And then the next day you get to decide again. And then the next day you get to decide again. From a pure rational economic standpoint, this is ideal. You have no long-term tie-in. You have complete optionality here to go move wherever else you like. My question for you is, how well would you treat this apartment? How would you think of this apartment? If there was a small thing that happened, you knew how to repair it, would you repair it? Would you buy plants for it? All of these questions, right? The parallel here is that relationships are better when we invest in them. And this idea of, this world where something is the next swipe away, and every day, imagine again with your partner, every day you wake up and I look at you and I say, oh, are we going to do this for another day? Are we going to do this for another day? So there's something about being just in this moment and kind of in this relationship now, in an experiential mindset rather than an evaluative one. Okay, let's look at, this is a screenshot of the Bumble app. And what stands out to us from this app, from this screen here? Anyone want to put in chat? Circles, yeah. Multiple people gave, yes, absolutely. So this is kind of doing a design. This is absolutely suggesting that you should be talking to multiple people. I like that, especially, it's not like it's full 6, right? There's the cutoff here that's clearly suggesting even more, right? To be talking to even more. And so this is creating this mental model of we should be talking to multiple people. And I'm not saying we can go in and change the Bumble app. I would love to, by the way, talk to them or any dating app about how they've designed things. But we can, for ourselves, right, jerry-rig the process for ourselves. If we know that this kind of mindset, all this choice overload affects our decision making, we can pretend that it's like this. We can pretend that let's just have 3 active conversations at a time, and everyone else we kind of just slot out. We use behavioral science to say, let's just talk with 3 and manage the choice overload accordingly. Okay, let's look at this. These are 2 more screens from dating apps. What stands out here? What are the features of these humans that are being highlighted to me? This is kind of like, yeah, putting what's being made salient. What stands out? I'm looking at chats again. Age, height, location, yep. Photo, physical stats, job and height, absolutely. So these are the things, the design of this app is essentially telling me, these are the things that we should be picking on, right? This person's 28, this person's 31, 5'9", 5'7". It's almost like there's probably some truth, right, to the idea that I'm sure there's some data, I haven't looked this up, but I'm sure there's some truth to the idea that women have some kind of bias around height, strong preference for, wanting to know height. But this kind of design, making it this salient, putting it this much in the forefront, is almost taking an existing kind of bias and amplifying it. This makes me think of airlines. There's probably an existing baseline preference for people that, they probably did some research and customers said, we just want the cheapest flight. Clearly show what the price is. And so this sort of design leads with price, and it doesn't tell me about what's the total duration, or not in any salient way, right? It's really small here. What's the on-time rate of these different flights? All of these factors that we should be probably considering in our choice, we're not. Instead of we're over choosing on price. As a counter to that, we can look at this. This is a lovely screen from a Canadian train that is making salient something we don't typically make salient, which is productive time, right? Train, look at how much productive time you have versus these other modes of transportation. So the product has a lot of power here in pulling forward what should we choose on. And I would argue that this is pulling a lot of the kind of wrong things. There's nothing about the fact that this guy likes skiing that means necessarily we're going to be great long-term partners. There's no correlation between that. These are not predictive, right? And so this is a kind of a challenge of the dating landscape as well. Okay, so let's move on to the next principle here and talk about defaults. Again, really obvious behavioral science principle. I'm sure everyone's aware of it. We see it from the research. Most famous example is probably in retirement savings. If you default people in versus not, huge impact on whether they sign up for retirement. I want to challenge you all to think of how defaults might play in for dating. Any suggestions? You can do this in chat again. Or if you're really bold, you can unmute. Default status preferences, use the dating preferences filters. Yeah, swiping on your first option. Yeah, these are nice. I'm looking forward, by the way, when we do the breakouts, if you guys are have a lot of ideas and I can share them further there. So two ideas that I have here that I wanted to chat about is, one is we should probably be defaulting to more than one date, right? We're not looking, when we're thinking about a long-term partner, we're not selecting for who is good at first dates, right? In the same way that we, it doesn't matter that someone likes hiking or whatever that has the same hobby as you is not, that's not predictive. In the same way, we don't want to, it's almost like the system favors people who are good at taking good photos, are good at, doing that coffee interview date. That's not life. Life is not about coffee interviews. And so we should probably default to more than one date. That's one idea around defaults. The other idea around defaults is a little bit different, and it's that there's some evidence that we tend to slide sometimes in relationships, and we just progress to the next level of the relationship by default. So imagine that you've been dating for however many months, and then one of your lease is up, and you kind of look at each other like, well, I guess we should move in together, right? So someone's lease being up is not a reason to be moving in together, right? We should be making more proactive choices on whether we do want to take it to the next level. If so, wonderful. And if not, maybe not do so, right? The fact that your lease is expiring is irrelevant to this. Okay, one more. Let's suspend reality for a beautiful second and pretend that there's no COVID and we get to go to a play without any worries. And we've, in one scenario, we've paid $200. We went there and we waited in line for 2 hours to get these tickets. They're very hard to get. And we go to the play and the first act is just terrible, just horrible. Do we leave at intermission? Do you go and do something else with your time? That's one question. Scenario two, a friend of yours gave you tickets because she couldn't make it. And the same thing, first act is terrible. Do you leave at intermission? What are your votes here? Can anyone explain, anyone want to say, why is this different? Leave it free. Stay.
I have an opinion about it.
Yeah, go ahead.
I say it's just because you're already like more invested into it, not just in money, but you spend time as well.
Yes, that's exactly right. Thank you for being a brave soul to unmute. It makes us feel together. So I appreciate that. Absolutely. So this is sunk cost. We've invested into it. So even though at the moment, at this exact moment where the first act is terrible, going forward, we should be able to make a quote unquote rational decision and just say, well, it's irrelevant how much I've put in. Is my time worth the probability of the second act being good or bad is not different in these two scenarios, right? Is my time worth this? Should I walk away or not? And yet, you're exactly right. This investment that we've put in impacts how we see, whether we decide to move forward or not. And this plays in very much in relationships as well, right? So imagine you've spent X many months or even years in a relationship. Maybe the relationship isn't so great right now, and you're questioning, do I want to move forward with it or not? But we have this huge bias of the time and energy that we've invested into it. And so one exercise here could be, let's suspend reality, again, like using behavioral science on our own life for good. So we say, let's pretend I don't have that history with this person, and I'm just meeting them today, knowing everything that I know about them, but we don't have these years of history together. Would I start a new relationship with them? Would I start it all over again? And I think if your answer is no, I think that's telling you something really important. It's very uncomfortable, right, to face that reality, and it's almost a hard question to even ask ourselves, but I think it's a useful exercise to do. Okay, wonderful. So to not end on that downer for the dating section, I want to flip it around a little bit and end on a different piece, which is, let's rethink coffee dates, right? Kind of back to what I was saying before. We're choosing someone as a life partner, and whether you're good at a coffee date is not relevant. And there's something about coffee dates that is just that kind of interview mindset, this evaluative mode. And so let's think broadly. One idea here is going whitewater rafting, right? Kayaking, these types of things where maybe something could go a little bit wrong. Maybe there's small moments of stress along the way. How does this person react when things don't always go perfectly? Do they blame you? Do they, are they optimistic? Are they positive? Do they focus on the solution? These might be relevant things. I'm sure you can think of many more ideas, but this is just the suggestion here is to challenge the idea of the coffee date. So we went over a lot for dating, so I'm going to just go recap for us. An experiential versus evaluative mindset, right? Not this like, oh, am I not sure about this? I got kind of one foot out the door. The next best thing is just to swipe away. Managing our choice overload. So one tip could be like, just jury rig it. Limit your active conversations to 3, maybe. Default to a few, 3 dates, maybe 2. Don't go to the next level by default. And managing our sunk costs. So if we wouldn't necessarily pick them today, maybe you shouldn't be in that relationship. And then finally, we ended on going beyond the coffee date.